Look, I'm not pissed to the point where I'm annoyed and I'm going to call people out their names, or especially people that I love, like the person I'm about to talk about in a few minutes. She struggled with physical defense she's faced at the professional level and voiced frustration with the league's officiating, recently telling reporters, quote, "I feel like I'm getting hammered and everybody is physical with me, and opponents get away with things that other people don't get away with." That's what Caitlin Clark said, that it was a cheap shot. It was not a basketball play. She should have been ejected, number one. Number two, there should have been a fine that was incurred thereafter. Number three, not to say that there won't be or hasn't been at this moment in time, I don't know of one. I know the team was fined for media availability purposes because people weren't available to talk.
Caitlin Clark was assaulted yesterday in her very first playoff game in the WNBA.
Have you noticed what transpired with Caitlin Clark? The NBA player was recently struck with a vicious poke to the eye by Dijonai. Everyone is questioning if it was intentional and why the officials didn't intervene. This incident is causing a stir throughout the league.
It's important that we point this out. One of the things that I brought up this morning in talking about Caitlin Clark is that some of the players, you want to use the word jealousy, fine. You want to use the word envy, fine.
Imagine this a high-stakes playoff game with the audience going crazy. Suddenly, Carrington's finger meets Clark's eye, causing the arena to go dead and confirming Clark's invisible anguish. Can you believe there was no foul call? The fans are furious, and it's hard to blame them.
And because of her box office attraction, it's generating more eyeballs to the WNBA product, therefore more revenue for the WNBA product. Don't you think y'all are going to benefit from that too? Look at the big picture. That's what I was talking about when I was talking about it this morning on my day job, First Take on ESPN, every weekday morning from 10 a.m. to 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. A rising tide raises all boats.
But this is where things get very fascinating. Was this just a freak accident, or was there anything more? You might think it's obvious, but I promise you that the answer will surprise you right now. It's not just about one play. It could alter the entire landscape of the NBA. Are you prepared to learn how?
But damn it, in the first 2 minutes of this game, this Dijonai Carrington stabbed Caitlin Clark with her fingernails right in the eye.
You may have thought that the eye poke was horrible, but wait till you saw what it did to Caitlin Clark's performance. We're talking about a complete collapse on the court. But set aside Clark for a moment, this whole situation may alter women's basketball forever, and you won't imagine what happened next.
If Caitlin Clark is the quote-unquote savior, if she's the golden girl, milk it. If I remember correctly, Caitlin Clark signed a $28 million endorsement deal. When nobody in the WNBA getting that, nobody's gotten that yet but her. A'ja Wilson is the superstar in the NBA, in the WNBA. She's a two-time champion. This girl is legit. She's the real deal. And those kind of endorsements and all of that stuff ain't come her way.
Recall how Clark was destroying the league, scoring 20 points a game as if it were nothing at all. But then something happened and everything changed. She shot a pitiful 23.5%, and her scoring fell to just 11 points per game. It was like watching a different player play. There were no foul calls, and there was no real discussion of it on the ESPN broadcast. After the game, ESPN published a story that omitted any mention of the fact that 2 minutes into the game, a dirty play involving one of these women with long, false fingernails stabbed the biggest star in NBA history, a woman in the eye. Now, you might be thinking, come on, it's just one bad game, right? Incorrect. I felt like I had good shots that just didn't go down. It was a tough time for that to happen. Can you imagine the league struggling to find her rhythm when it matters most? The kind of stuff that's happening and has been happening over the last few months is because of Caitlin Clark. This slump hit Clark hard, and it wasn't just about the numbers. You could see the frustration all over her face. Statistics in front of me to support it because, as you can see, I bring receipts. I'll explain why I'm so irate in a moment, but this is where things get very interesting. This wasn't just. Regarding Clark, her comrades were in a panic. They couldn't believe that after focusing their entire strategy on her, she wasn't at 100%. It's like attempting to pilot a jet with one engine out. How do you adjust on the fly in the middle of the playoffs? Do you think that affected the outcome of the game? I read this especially in story time, where Alyssa Thomas scored a triple-double and so scored X points, and the Connecticut Sun knocked off the Fever. As I read the story, I wonder where it mentions that Michael Jordan of the Washington Wizards was assaulted and the fans. Do you think that your meal ticket should be purposefully stabbed in the eye on the court 2 minutes into the game? Oh my, they would not have it. Not exaggerating this, social media went crazy faster than a buzzer beater. Everyone and their grandmother was pleading with the NBA to intervene, asking why there hadn't been a foul call and where the referees were. In the opening 2 minutes of the game, while the players are attempting to throw the ball, this woman swats at the basketball and for some reason decides to turn her palm down under her fingernails and poke him directly in Caperman Clark's eye. However, the most shocking part of this incident is that it's not just about or one game anymore. It's upending the NBA's basic structure. We're talking about officiating standards and player safety. The entire 9 yards of the league may have unintentionally opened a can of worms that it is unable to close. The league is in hot water and about to explode. It is no longer just about protecting stars. It is about the essence of women's basketball. The question now is how far can players push before it becomes too much? The NBA's next move will likely redefine the sport as we know it. Caitlin, could you briefly describe the hit you saw? Thank you, obviously, whether it had an impact on you and how it influenced you during the remainder of the game. Got me fairly good in the eye. Now that I think about it, let's watch a thrilling playoff game. The following game, we're delving into topics that have the potential to permanently alter women's basketball. Let's talk player safety. This incident has opened up a whole new discussion about something other than Caitlin Clark's eye. The NBA is balancing the need to protect its stars with the intensity that makes the game exciting. It's like trying to keep a pot from boiling over while turning up the heat. How can you keep the game fierce without endangering your players? She will encounter some racism from black people, gamers, and because she is not a member of the LGBT community, is Catholic, and has a boyfriend, she will encounter some level of hatred from lesbian players. She will enter an incredibly hostile environment, but here's where things get really messy. Some people are whispering about tensions between races. Yes, you heard correctly. Clark is a white player in a league where the majority of players are black. While no one is blaming race for the incident, some people are concerned that her success may be upsetting some players. It's a sensitive topic, but we can't ignore it. You brought up this issue, and I believe it to be true. The true difference between men and women is that at their core, the women will be incredibly jealous. I hope they can overcome this because winning teams like to win even if they're not the star. Great, we'll get a championship and everyone will jump on the backs of Michael Jordan and Larry Bird. I'm not sure if that will happen with Caitlin Clark, though. The NBA must now decide how to handle this situation. Could change how they handle aggressive play, protect their stars, and possibly even market the league. It's like they're rewriting the rule book on the fly. No foul call, no referees stopping the game to determine whether this is a flagrant violation. This could set the tone for years to come. We're talking about more than just one foul here, not just everyone, none of that. Moved on your best star, your meal ticket, the reason you are relevant, and nothing happened. Understand that this is about more than just the WNBA, regardless of what they decide. We're talking about transforming the culture of women's basketball from the top down, which is significant in WNBA history. It might spread to college ball, high school, or even your neighborhood recreational league. Who is the top overall pick, Aaron? Who is the top pick? Say it louder. It's simply a coincidence, but Caitlin Clark is the first overall pick. Of course, this isn't the highest rated selection in history because, ladies and gentlemen, do you realize how much the WNBA TV ratings have increased this season? Did you know that there was a WNBA doubleheader on ABC a year ago? Well, the kicker is that the WNBA is at a crossroads. ABC announced that it had its most watched opening weekend doubleheader ever, with 2 games totaling in an average of 1.5 million viewers. They need to make some difficult decisions quickly. Do they confront the racial elephant in the room or act as though it doesn't exist? Dijonai, like many of these girls in the WNBA, has a history with Caitlin Clark. Do they punish aggressive play harshly or risk alienating viewers who enjoy the intensity? Top of the list, along with Angel Reese and Kennedy Carter in Chicago. However, earlier in the season, Dijonai Carrington made fun of Caitlin Clark on the court and played a very physical game with her back then, too. And look, Caitlin Clark does occasionally make some floppy plays. Perhaps I'm pointing this out in reference to yesterday's events. Perhaps if Caitlin Clark hadn't been known as a flopper, the referees would have taken it more seriously when she was stabbed in the eye and fell to the court. One thing is for certain, the WNBA can't just bury this. While spectators watch, athletes wait, the dust is settling. But the landscape of women's basketball may never be the same. Players are speaking out, fans are demanding action, and the NBA is paying attention. Whatever they decide will shape the future of women's hoops. The entire basketball world is holding its breath. This could change the game forever. That the NBA was an afterthought 3 years ago, a little less than that. There were thoughts of this team being defunct and going away. Nobody cared. You thought the drama was over. Think again, this eye poke incident. That doesn't mean it wasn't growing in popularity over the last 2 to 3 years before Caitlin Clark came along. Isn't just vanishing, it's igniting a revolution in women's basketball. And get this, players, coaches, and the league itself are uniting to bring about some significant changes. Players are quitting the game, as Caitlin mentioned in her first response. So is that something you can discuss? I just feel like there is some physical contact, and occasionally these guys are coming off screens and moving in ways where they're just getting bodied a lot. I thought that was happening early on, and I thought that AB was preventing some players from receiving some calls down low that she probably should have, but in the end, like I said, it's not about the officiating tonight for sure. In fact, we need to improve our defense. The players themselves are stepping up to the plate. They're not just worried about winning, but about safety, about clearer rules, about making sure everyone's protected on the court. It's like they're saying, hey, we love this game, but we need to feel safe playing it. First, they're not just sitting back and complaining on social media anymore. Nope, they're calling for some real action. We're talking fine suspensions the whole 9 yards. They want the WNBA to show that this kind of behavior won't fly. Can you imagine the impact if the league actually listens? Caitlin, if it affected you, could you tell us a little about the strike to your eye? How that affected you and the remainder of the game, thank you, really touched me pretty. Nice in the sense that we occasionally struggled to get stops, but it also felt like the clock was getting screwed up. It was just one thing after another. Nevertheless, overall, I didn't find it bothersome, even though it wasn't particularly pleasant at the time, but it is what it is now. Thoughts aside, are you aware that the NBA is reportedly really considering making some significant changes? If so, hold on to your seats because it appears that they won't be doing much. We're talking about a radical change in how they manage player behavior and physical play. It's as though the rules are being written entirely over somewhat erratically, as in. Dijonai Carrington needs to be suspended for Game 2 because, in my opinion, this is unacceptable. The drama surrounding the game has just begun. She makes some kind of flop, and we don't know what to do with that little out. Be advantageous for women's basketball? Yes, you read correctly. This whole turmoil may bring about some improvements that strengthen and secure the NBA for all parties. It's true what they say, sometimes it takes a little chaos to create something beautiful. We might be in for a completely new age of women's basketball if the league takes action and implements these adjustments, one in which players feel safer, supporters feel heard, and the sport itself achieves new heights. Protecting celebrities like Caitlin Clark is no longer the only goal. Elevating the sport as a whole is also important. It's not something you can just try out for free. And then all of a sudden your hand moves downward and directly into the biggest star in the NBA. It's not a natural gesture. And I pointed that out yesterday while watching the game in real time, but hey, that was intentional. And get this, not just the NBA might profit from it. We may be seeing the beginning of a safety revolution in basketball, and it all began with one contentious eye poke that offended me. These modifications may spread to college ball, high school leagues, and possibly even your neighborhood pickup games.